Alright, welcome in. I'm the Kodiak, and this one just feels gross to make, seeing on how I've made a lot of videos about players on my channel recently, about quarterbacks who haven't been performing. And Trevor Lawrence has had an up and down career with the Jacksonville Jaguars thus far, but from the title of the video, you know what this is about. It is that Trevor Lawrence just simply has not lived up to the expectations that were made for him coming into the league. And before we get into it, I just want to say, leave a like, and if you don't want to do it now, maybe you'll wait until the end and hopefully I'll have earned it. But leave a comment saying what you think about Trevor Lawrence and if you think he is the guy going forward in Jacksonville and he can recapture some of that magic that he was hailed as coming out. And it's been interesting seeing how he's responded to being the franchise quarterback, and he has been faced with quite a bit of adversity. He came into the league when the Jaguars were an absolute disaster. The 2020 Jaguars won Week 1 against the hated division rival Indianapolis Colts and did not win another game for the rest of the year. It was an incredibly difficult situation for a quarterback to be thrust into. Their best player in 2020 was Josh Allen, and their other best player was a one-year wonder running back. And the Jaguars were clearly devoid of talent for a long 2 years, and the Urban Meyer absolute disaster did not help either. But Doug Peterson coming in really helped turn things around for Lawrence in a big way. They made the playoffs in 2022 and ended the year white hot. They started exactly where they picked up last year, the previous year in 2023, and they slapped their opponents over the first 11 games, but ended up missing the playoffs after starting 8-3. No other way to put it. Absolutely embarrassing collapse for Jacksonville this past season. And look at me when I say this. Lawrence is an above average to good quarterback. But this is a chart of who I would rather have at quarterback if I just needed to win one game or even just throughout the course of the season. And it's basically Lawrence or the team's incumbent starter, not including cap space or contracts, because there's a gray area when it comes to that, especially considering Lawrence is 24 and he's definitely a more valuable asset to the league than guys like Dak or Cousins. But regardless, the teams that are X'd out are teams whose quarterbacks I would prefer over him. The teams with nothing on their logo are the ones whose starter I think Lawrence is better than, and this does not include Caleb Williams or Jake May yet. And I don't think I would do it for May. Jury's still out, but I would definitely do it for Caleb, meaning I would definitely take Caleb over Lawrence. But I saw crazy stuff during draft season when he was coming out, like, oh, he's a blend of Mahomes, he's a blend of Herbert, because that was after the big year that Herbert had. I saw some Josh Allen sprinkled in there too, especially after 2020, and then Lamar, and then I just never bought into any of those comparisons. You know, people were trying to comp certain attributes that he had to those quarterbacks, but I never bought into that. He couldn't read defenses in college because he never really had to. And anytime he did, he was very much prone to high turnover performances. And yet, his arm talent was incredible. He was very athletic for his size. It's very rare to find a quarterback that's 6'6" with speed like that. So he was incredibly toolsy. And if you were to build your ideal quarterback in a lab, as far as frame, height, maybe arm strength, it would probably be Trevor Lawrence, or at least closest to him. But let me get one thing clear. Anyone who said he was a generational prospect in the months or days leading up to the 2021 draft was selling you a blatant lie. High floor quarterback? Yeah. Great prospect? Absolutely. But he was never along the likes of Peyton and Luck. And I think even Burrow and Caleb and Zach Wilson were better as prospects. He was toolsy, playing in a deep shot, check down to read offense with crazy talent advantages. Travis Etienne, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, and Hunter Renfrow. And you'll laugh at the latter two of those names, but those guys were great at Clemson. Ross especially before the spinal surgery. But he was never the day one superstar that he was supposed to be or billed as. He rarely ever faced pressure in college because, well, Clemson's offense was absolutely loaded. But when he did, he looked absolutely lost. And I also wasn't a fan of his ball placement. And if you think this is hindsighted, there's a video on my channel talking like, oh, the Jaguars tanked for Trevor. I made it 3-4 years ago. You can check it out if you want to. But it was talking about how I definitely understood why people liked his game, but I didn't actually believe that Lawrence was the generational guy that he was being crowned as in sports media. And anyone who pointed out genuine concerns and genuine problems with Trevor Lawrence's game in draft circles that year was immediately called out and accused of prospect fatigue without entertaining legit discussion. And something that's really disappointed me in the NFL, watching him as opposed to his days at Clemson, is his rushing ability in college compared to the pros. Do you guys remember that run he ripped off in the playoff against Ohio State? I understand different leagues, but where is that? I love quarterbacks who can get to the second level and make guys miss. Something is missing in Trevor Lawrence's game regarding this attribute that he showed in college football, but that translates relatively easy to the NFL, historically speaking, even at quarterback. I know running backs and wide receivers who break tackles are often and can house it, often do it in the NFL as well. And running through contact metrics are some of the stickiest when it comes from college to the NFL. But it hasn't translated for Lawrence, which is kind of disappointing. Still a running threat in the red zone for sure, but not someone you're going to design runs for. That being said, let's just skip forward to this past year because I already went over 2021 and 2022. Actually, if you need a little refresher, because I didn't really touch on those that much, 2021, absolute disastrous year with Urban Meyer at the helm. 2022, they go all in on free agency of Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, and at the trade deadline, they add Calvin Ridley. But the one thing they kind of disregarded was the offensive line. Sure, they drafted a lineman in the first round next year, but this line unit still is not that good. But Trevor Lawrence is still heavily overrated due to pedigree. I think he is generally good enough to at least be given the shot to be the franchise quarterback. But sports media pumped him up as a darling, and I felt like people ran with it without watching. There was no shot you could have watched Burrow's final season at LSU and thought Lawrence was unironically a better prospect. TLaw generally has just been fine, mixed with some great flashes, and every time he has had those flashes or a great game, all the podcasters and sports media are in a rush to crown him, saying he's arrived or ascended, when he's legitimately just an above average to good quarterback at this point. Remember when he led the Jaguars to a divisional round appearance? Now, depending on if you're a Lawrence stan or a Lawrence hater, you will choose selectively which half you want to remember from that wild card game against the Chargers. If you're a Lawrence stan, you're going to point to the second half, but if you're a hater, you're going to point to the first half. But at some point, people need to readjust their pre-draft expectations to what a guy is actually showing in the NFL. Is he good enough to carry and elevate guys around him? I'm not going to say no. Sometimes yes. But for the real superstars, the answer is a bona fide yes. But he has not, in my opinion, been the game-breaking player he was hailed to be when he got into the NFL. Not even close. We can point to anything. We can point to the fact that the coaching on the offensive side of the ball has been rather bad. We can point to his weapons playing very inconsistent for a lot of the year, besides ETN. We can point to anything. We can point to the embarrassing defensive performances at the end of the year. And I don't care that the Broncos gave up 70 points this year to the Dolphins. The Jake Browning Monday night game was the most pathetic defensive effort I've seen a team put forward all season. Does he need to be a bona fide top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL to be at least worth the number 1 overall pick? Not exactly, although you are hoping you get a generational talent, a franchise turning around guy, and I'm not going to say Lawrence can't do that. You know, even if he turns into Kirk Cousins, that is a massive win with the first overall pick just due to the volatility of prospects in general. That said, he has already been passed by his division rival Stroud, and based on what I saw from Richardson, I'd take him over Lawrence too. And those guys never got their tires pumped by the sports media like TLaw did when he was coming into the league. So this is something we need to reevaluate. When we look at guys like Caleb Williams, when we look at guys like Drake May, when we look at guys like Jaden Daniels, you need to have legit discussions about what these guys' strengths and weaknesses are. Even though I'm a huge fan of Caleb Williams, I think, everything going on about, he wants to play for Chicago, he doesn't want to play for Chicago, his dad said this, his dad said that, complete nonsense. Yeah, but let me know what you guys think. That does it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.